Well, hello everyone and welcome to the webinar. This is Frank Shepard from the South Carolina Big I, and I hope you and your staff are staying safe and still maintaining your agency operations to service and assist your clients. I know these are interesting, difficult, and tough times. We've been fielding a lot of questions the past few weeks from agencies, and a lot of these are centering around working remotely. We know some of your offices were already equipped and set up to work remotely. Some of you may even have permanent staff that work remotely. But for many of you, this is the first time you've had to deal with this. And so we've created a webinar today to look at the agencies that are implementing work-at-home policies, some of the ones that have had success doing that, and give you some ideas on where to start and how to do it. We've got a great group of people helping us on the webinar today. First off, Becky McCormick and Megan Hebner from the Big I. They are on the tech team here supporting us and giving us rolling the slides through. On the call is George Robertson. George has 25 years experience in the insurance and technology industry, and 10 of those as a fellow independent insurance agency owner. He helps agencies with all types of technology issues, and he consults for both the Big I of North Carolina and South Carolina. And we've had George a lot in front of our groups, and we're glad to have him back. Also on the call, Jay Taylor. Jay is our current Big I state chairman of the board. He's also the managing partner of Kinghorn Insurance of Beaufort. Andrew Muller, president and CEO of Mathis Insurance in Charleston. He's also a current board member and chair of a newly revised technology committee that we're bringing forth at the Big I. And this is one of our first events from the technology committee. And also with us, a former Big I board member, Matt Wiseman, principal of People's Underwriters in Conway and Myrtle Beach. So, gentlemen, we appreciate you being with us, and we look forward to learning a little more about working remotely. And so I'll just jump right in. One of the questions we receive is about technology. What type of technology does a remote employee need, and what should an agency be looking at? And George, Andrew, I'm going to start that question to you.
Absolutely. Well, I appreciate y'all having me. So the first thing everyone needs is some sort of computer. How are we going to communicate? Got to have the computer. That's the number one thing. Preferably a laptop, and preferably a laptop that has a video camera in it. We made the mistake once of buying all new laptops without video cameras. So get one with a video camera. A voice over IP phone system, that's what VoIP, VoIP. You want to have a VoIP phone system. And what that means is that you can basically operate and answer phones from anywhere in the world as long as you have an internet connection. But the internet connection needs to be a high-speed internet connection to make sure that there aren't drop calls, and to make sure that you can handle multiple things at once, running your management system, answering phone calls, being on the internet, running quotes, and as well as communicating with your team. So those are the three basic things that you need. And it doesn't take a whole lot to get those three basic things to start working remote.
Yeah, and Andrew, this is George. I'll add a little something to that particular piece as well. So one of the beautiful things about the voice over IP, if you're using that in the office and you have staff that have to go home, they can take the phone with them and plug it in at their house. And when somebody calls the office, it'll ring at their home. So it doesn't matter where the phone is physically located, they can still pick up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and just in addition to the voice over IP phone system, there are a lot of really inexpensive systems out there, and a lot of agencies will find that if they move over to a voice over IP phone system, that their cost of the phone system will drop dramatically.
Yeah, that's a great point, Andrew. And I tell you, one of the interesting things with us, when we moved, we were paying about $800 a month in phone-related cost, and it dropped the cost down to about $165 a month. It was remarkable.
And then one last thing I want to mention about these voice over IP phone systems is that you can literally sign up today with one and get started today. It's that simple.
So guys, good information on getting started. And so now we we get this equipment, we get plugged in, and immediately I'm thinking of security. So there's got to be some security concerns for remote workers. George, what do you got for us on security?
Sure, absolutely, Frank. And I tell you, security is a key piece to this. One of the things I always point out is really on the home-based router to make sure you change your admin password, your SSID code. You want to make sure that you've got antivirus and anti-malware installed on your machines, on the laptops or computers that you're going to have at the home, and make sure that's automatically updating that information for those virus protection libraries that they have. And then I would say, if you can, have encryption on those machines, especially if they're laptops, in case they do get lost or stolen. And then two-factor authentication, I think, is important, especially as you're going through your email, your management system, and maybe your Radar for auto and home. Two-factor is very important to help secure those systems. And I think, Matt, you were going to talk a little bit about VPN.
Yes. We currently don't have our office management software in the cloud yet, so we still host it locally. So in order for our folks who work at home to connect, we have a VPN tunnel, virtual private network. We've got a firewall, and it's just a little program that sits on the computer. They connect with it, and then once they connect, it's very much like they're sitting at their desk at the office, and then they log into the office management software and work, and everything goes well.
Good
Matt,
point. And I think, Matt, one other thing I wanted to touch base on is, being that you're going to have this computer or laptop at your home, you may have that tendency where one of the kids come up and say, hey, I need to use your machine for something for school, and that's not recommended to have anybody else in the household use that machine other than the individual it was given to from the office. So we do want to be aware of that.
I just want to say one other thing, George, about that as well. On the VPN, that's very inexpensive too. I mean, we have a VPN in our office here, and again, it's something that just adds that additional layer of protection. We are in the cloud, and we don't have traditional desktop computers. We all have thin client servers. Basically looks like a large Apple TV, as you will. And just that and a couple of monitors, and the security for our remote workers, for those that have their thin clients at home, they simply just need an internet access, and they log into that thin client service, which is, we say it's a cloud-based service. It's supported by Amazon. And you log into that, and then from there, we then log into our agency management system, which is another layer of protection that you're getting. You know, again, you're going through multiple layers there.
Yeah, I think too, Jay, one other thing I want to touch base is just really secure passwords. Having a password to log into the device, and making sure that password is probably around 10 to 12 characters in length. You know, there's been a lot of studies involved of how quickly you can actually hack a password if it's just 4, 5, 6, 7, or 8 characters. So that's another area you want to make sure that people are really fine-tuning and making sure they're updating those passwords on a regular basis.
George, one thing that we do is we use a program called RoboForm, and you have to, and it's basically a password keeper is what it is. And you have to, once you're logged into the Amazon web portal, you can then log into that RoboForm, and that's a great way to keep all of your individual passwords for the different programs in a safe, secure spot. But it is important to make sure that you have a strong password for that RoboForm.
Right, and I tell you, we don't have for a lack of passwords in this industry, that's for sure.
That's the truth.
Okay, guys, so now we've set up our remote offices. We've got people scattered all over the community now, but you got to still communicate within the office. Andrew, what are some of the ways that you keep in touch with your team? What are some of the easiest ways? I can imagine a lot of emails back and forth. There's got to be better ways than emailing each other in the office to stay in touch.
Absolutely. So there's this really cool software out there that is actually, it's free. It's called Slack. There's a free version and a paid version. We actually still use the free version. And it's basically, think of it like text messaging back and forth, or instant messenger, if y'all remember AOL, the instant messenger, or even a Facebook messenger. It's just like that, and it's so easy. And the cool thing about it is, so you can message people individually, but you can also message people like groups. Like, so we have a group set up for our service team and a group set up for our sales team. So as a sales team member, if you have a question related to something you're working on, you can Slack, quote unquote, Slack the sales channel is what we call it, and ask questions, and you can start getting answers from various people versus shooting out an email, and now all of a sudden you have 15 emails that are all replies that are just what I call like productivity killer. So it's a great way to communicate, especially when you're remote, because if you just have one quick little question, you can't get a hold of someone, you shoot them a little Slack message, get something back, and you're good to go.
Hey, and Andrew, let me share something right at that point, because we use Slack as well. And one of the things that I've seen is, as everybody's working remotely, somebody calls in, they get the call at their home, they're talking to somebody, and they're like, hey, we spoke to somebody at your agency, we're not sure who it was. Then they can go out on Slack and put a quick message and get a response back and answer the question as to who was speaking to that client. And the other thing that we've seen that's been really great, which really doesn't pertain to the working remotely at the moment, but going out and taking photographs of homes or vehicles, you can take those within Slack, and then that photograph is automatically in the system, so somebody back at the office can download it. So there's no need to email that photograph or text it over, or what you may have done in the past.
Absolutely, but I can promise y'all that Slack has been a huge game changer for our office when it just comes to communication in general. If you're gonna step out of the office for a few minutes, go to lunch, we have a channel for that too. It's called Out of Office. And you just say, hey, stepping away for 15 minutes, I'll be back. And so now everyone knows that you're not in, or if you're going on an appointment, hey, I'm heading out to an appointment, I'll be back in an hour. Everyone knows.
So Andrew, do I have to get rid of my little board I've got out there with the magnets on it?
Maybe you could use it for something else. I don't know.
George,
Maybe
we use a
virtual
program
drinking game or something.
similar to Slack. Again, it's called GroupMe, and we have different divisions set up as well within GroupMe, and have used that for a couple of years and have done it very successfully. It initially came about when in preparation of hurricanes, and when our team would split up for evacuation for a hurricane, we were able to communicate very easily, very efficiently through that. And now that we are all operational on a remote basis here, we do have a messaging system through our voice over IP that our program, our Mitel system, and there are different groups within that, and so we communicate very easily through that instant message system, and it just pops up right on our computer screen right in front of us as well.
And to add to that, one more thing, just in regards to Slack, I'm sure Microsoft Teams is similar. There's, in virtually every other software out there, there's always going to be most of the time an app for your phone. So I can respond to Slack messages from my phone when I'm not in front of my computer too.
So I think in Microsoft Teams and Basecamp, we've got those listed on this list as well too. Or I know Microsoft Teams is I guess it's been out a year or two. As another way to kind of group work. I'm gonna put it's more than just messaging. I have not been using it, but I have at least looked at it. Andrew, tell me about virtual happy hour. I think that idea came from your office.
Well, certainly, yeah. This virtual happy hour is kind of a something I never invented, but we actually use something, another system that we will be talking about here in a little bit. So you can either use Zoom, or you can use some other sort of virtual video hangout, as we call it. And So virtual happy hours is basically like a regular happy hour, except you're sitting in front of your computer. And so we've been doing this the last few weeks, every Thursday at 4:30, and everybody's hopping on the same video call together, and we're all just sitting in our living rooms, and you have your beverage of choice, and we all just kind of hang out, and we just chat, we tell jokes, we see what's going on in everybody's world. Sometimes somebody might have their kids in the video with them, or their dog, or their spouse comes in, and so you get to really get into the lives of your team members, and in my opinion, that really helps create and solidify your culture, because now it's like, oh, I see you have that painting on the wall. Like, I never would have known that if I was never in your house, and now I'm like virtually in your house with you. And so the other day, I recently moved into a new house, and so I did a virtual tour for everybody of my new house during our happy hour. So there's just a lot of things that you can do to stay connected as a team, and while you're working remote.
Yeah, Andrew, I think we've seen the same thing here as well.
We used to have real happy hours, and
well, I promise. Well, we don't just do it with our team. I've done it with some of our marketing reps, where
Right.
Traditionally they would have come to the office. We maybe would have gone out to lunch, or gone out for happy hour or something. And we say, hey, let's keep it up. Let's just do it virtually. And so we had one, I guess it might have been last night or the night before, with one of our insurance companies.
Real happy hours are coming back. I promise everyone. Just be patient. So,
they're both good. Virtual
okay.
is a little less expensive.
Good to know.
So one of the issues from working remotely is we still get physical mail into the office, and I'm assuming that most of you have process to at least check the physical mail that comes into a building. How are we handling that? What are some of the ways that you're processing mail and getting it to the staff that need to work on it? Jay, what are you doing in Beaufort?
Frank, we still have there are a few of us that are still coming into the office, as long as we're legally allowed to. We live close enough and it's convenient for us to come into the office, and the building's big enough that we can work remotely without interfering with abiding by social distancing rules. How about that? So in doing so, we just pick the mail up, the physical mail that comes to the post office box. It's on the way. It's about a block or so from my office. So that's picked up as it would normally be, and is brought in and scanned in. Here on the screen, we have MarvelBox listed. We have utilized MarvelBox for a while now and have been very happy with MarvelBox. However, this being a worldwide pandemic, the country of India has been shut down as well, and so MarvelBox for a period of time was shut down. They've reopened and are working remotely, but honestly, due to some of those security concerns, we have chosen to take that back in for the time being. Now, once they're operating back in their call centers and not using personal computers and laptops, we'll certainly go back to using them full time. But in the meantime, we've taken those chores back in. So what we're doing is basically getting the mail. They're being scanned to a central mailbox on a server that everyone can reach, and folks are going out and looking at the renewals and handling processing the way they would if it were just emailed straight to them.
We're doing something similar to that, Jay. We're we have a employee that'll go to the PO box and pick up the mail, then take it, I guess at this point, home with her, and we do front end scanning. So she'll sort the mail out and then scan it, and we're on applied system, so it'll scan in, and then everybody has their own, what we call like an image inbox. So it shows up individually for that particular user or that particular employee. So fortunately, they don't have to sort through a lot to see what's going on. And for other kind of items that come in, we'll scan and either email individually to whoever it goes to, or a central depository really, so that folks can look from that. But we've really gotten to enjoy the front end scanning, piece of things. It's kind of helped relieve some of the clutter, off the desk.
And Frank, too, we're have been trying to make sure that we're using everyone to their fullest capacity and creating as great of efficiencies as we can, so the folks that again would have normally gone and picked up the mail and would have brought it back in and scanned it onto MarbleBox. Like the receptionist, for example, she's handling a lot of this processing, and she's a licensed agent and has that capability, and she'll go through, determine what pieces go to what person or what division, and they're scanned in and put in those those central folders out on a shared drive, and all of us are taking part and going out and checking that shared drive to make sure that renewals are being processed, that just other scan and attach pieces are being handled, and so that business continues to flow and operate seamlessly for not only our clients but also all our employees. There's not a huge backlog.
Okay, so sounds like renewals and day-to-day processing are getting handled pretty well. Sooner or later, you're going to bind a policy. And that's a pretty critical piece of the insurance transaction for all agencies. And I know most agencies have strict procedures. George, what are you recommending for remote agencies on how to bind insurance policies?
Well, I think, Frank, one of the first things, of course, is e-signature. I'm sure that a lot of agents probably have that, and a lot of the carriers have that implemented. But in those cases where you may find that somebody doesn't have an email address that you can send the document to e-sign it, we are also using the voice over IP system, and we've created a script which we've run by our carriers, and they've okayed the script. So we'll walk through a process letting the individual know that the phone call is recorded. We'll go over the coverages. If it's an auto policy, who's on the auto policy, what vehicles are there, the coverages on the policy. We'll go over the pricing, and at the end, we'll ask them, do you agree that this is what you want to purchase and buying this policy today? They'll say yes, and then we take that recorded call and we save it into the management system, so we've got it for later. Now, at that point, you could, if you wanted to, send out a document for them to sign and send back in just to have a hard copy if you want to do that, but the voice recording piece is just beautiful, and a lot of the carriers are allowing agents to do that.
That's a great idea.
Let me ask y'all.
Anybody doing anything different? Yeah.
Well, George, let me ask you, and I'll ask Andrew as well, are you guys, when you're binding those agency bill policies, how are you handling payment for those? We use ePay policy and very easily shoot the client a link that allows them to go ahead and pay for said policy right there, and we're getting the money a lot faster than it would be if the individual is writing a check and mailing it in, and we're not having to deal with going and getting mail, processing those checks, and then taking them for deposit. How are you guys handling those?
I would say for agency bill, Jay, that would be the same here. And then Simply Easier Payments is another company that's got a product that's like the ePay policy, but both of those are good solutions for that particular problem.
And George, I'm curious at how you experience things as a smaller town agency where you might have a lot of foot traffic coming into the door. How are those type of clients experiencing that?
Well, it's very interesting as you get into that whole dilemma, because you're right, we are a smaller town, textile based, been here for a long time. A lot of the textiles have moved out. A lot of people will get their check on the 3rd of the month, they'll cash it, they don't go to the bank, they don't have a bank account, they'll come by to pay, believe it or not. So those individuals were of concern to us. So one of the things that we did is we went through the management system, ran a report of everybody that came by the office to pay, and we reached out to them and informed them they would have to either get a money order and mail that payment in, or they would have to send it directly to the carrier. Now, what we really saw from that was quite amazing. they were all okay. The majority of the people we spoke to were fine with doing that process and working through it. So that's worked extremely well for us.
We have, we also have, we stopped taking cash payments a year and a half ago or so, and we gave our clients about 6 or 8 months notice. We had it posted on the door. We still have it posted on the door. We had it posted up at our front counter, just for those, reminding those folks that were coming in to bring cash in and make their payments, primarily on direct bill policies. Those clients were coming in, making their cash payment, and we let them know that we're no longer accepting that. And so some of those clients went out and for a few months got money orders and brought those in, and we made those payments for them. However, we helped change their behavior. So over time, those clients weren't coming in to make their direct bill payments in cash to our agency. For that matter, a lot of them that were just simply making their payments just by check or credit card coming into the office. Over time, they learned to make those payments directly to the insurance company. We showed them how when they came in, and that really has cut down on a ton of time for our agents dealing with payments. We went around and surveyed everyone and asked them what was the thing that was taking up most of their time, is unproductive time, and they said, well, dealing with direct bill payments that clients are coming into the office and making. And
yeah,
so
exactly, Jade. I tell you, one of the things I
that.
believe is going to come out of this particular incident that we have today is that I believe that whole dilemma is going to change. People are going to start sending those payments in and understanding they've got to have another way to get the payment to the carrier, and hopefully that'll resolve that for the rural agents where those people are coming by the office.
Well, George, one thing that we've done to continue to help that is, and again, we've been around 120 years and have helped clients for 120 years learn those bad habits, and in a relatively short time are changing those. But with this, the clients are, with the inability to meet with clients right now, we've posted on the door and given very specific instructions that the office is closed to the public, but have given folks very easy methods to go to our website to find out how to make those payments to their directly to their insurance company. We've provided our telephone numbers, email addresses. Last resort, if they still want to mail their payment in, they can certainly do that. We've put it out on social media that this is how to get in touch with us. This is how to get in touch with your company to make your payments, and that seems to have worked very well. We've even have flyers on the front door that folks can take out, almost like a real estate flyer they can take on a house. This is with all this information, very specific information as to how to get in touch with us, how to make payments, how to file claims, and those folks have been taking that, and it seems to be working very well.
That's fantastic. Now, I will say this, Jay, we'll talk about this a little bit more, but video is another great way to send that out to the clients to show them how to do it. So we'll talk about that as we get further down the questions here, but that's another area that I think really falls into this segment.
So obviously a lot of phone calls are still coming into the office, whether you're in the office or remote. And Andrew, you kind of introduced us early on to voice over IP phone system and other ways to communicate. How are you handling calls in your office that come and have to be dispersed remotely to everybody?
Sure. So once everyone started working remotely, we changed the pattern of how phones were to be, how they were to ring. Traditionally, we had a main line ring into one desk, and then they would ring out to everyone after so many rings. But moving to that remote status, we all weren't in the office together, so it was harder to really know if that person was on the phone or what. So we just said, okay, everyone's phones are going to ring when the main phone rings. And so it's kind of us, first, take it if you can type of mentality. But in addition to that, the really cool thing about having a voice over IP phone system, we use a company called RingCentral, but there are many other systems out there, and I'm sure they all have various levels of data that you can track, and you can actually track the missed calls and call those people back, especially after hour calls. And you can see as an administrator of the account, I can see how many phone calls each employee are taking in and how many they're maybe transferring to other people. We can check to see voicemails and who's receiving voicemails and who's calling that person back in the quickest time. So there's a lot of things that can be done with a voice over IP phone system that you just literally cannot do with a traditional phone system.
Yeah, Andrew, one thing there that I found was very interesting in our system, and you probably have this as well, is you can have, if somebody's out of the office, they've got their cell phone with them, and they dial their extension, you can have that forward to their cell phone and pick it up as if they're in the office. And they can dial back to someone else as if they're in the office. So it'll show that DID number as if it's coming from the office, so they don't get the individual cell phone number.
I mean, I use that. If I'm in the office, my physical phone will ring, my desktop will ring, and my cell phone will ring. It's like, which one do I want to pick up? But no, you're absolutely right. I can be at my house or be out in California. It doesn't matter, and I can call someone from my office phone number, my direct line, and for all they know, I'm sitting in the office. And that's another really cool thing about a voice over IP phone system.
Right. And I love the tracking on those systems, Andrew, the data that you can pull out, number of calls made, number of calls received, calls going to voicemail. That is great information, especially to share it with the whole team.
And what's really cool about that is that you can track to see when your heavy volume call times are. So you can make sure you have people on the phones like available during those times, and then work the other tasks that they need to work when they don't need to be on the phone during the downtimes.
Andrew, that's exactly what we've done. It's been a huge help for us. And when, you know, again, we have all of our direct dial extensions are being forwarded to cell phones, but we have folks that are available for those high traffic times.
Yeah,
we already talked. Well, go ahead, Matt.
No, go ahead, Frank. We're good.
Well, I was going to jump. We already talked a little bit about handling customers that are still going to show up at your office, and how to. We talked a little bit already about handling payments for that, but there's other things that customers are trying to do. And I think we're waiting for our slide to move, and I see, there we go. We talked a little bit about this already in accepting payments. I think we covered that, but there are other things that customers are trying to do. What are some of the other things you guys are doing to either handle customers that still come to your office, especially during this time of restricted movement and restricted access? Who's got some good ideas,
Yeah,
George?
I'll take that, Frank, to start off with. So here's one of the things that we did. We have a lot of people that come into the office, rural area, a lot of people, they just drive by, pull up, and they'll come in. And so our concern was, what are we going to do if somebody goes by the office and everybody's working remotely? So we actually put in a Ring doorbell. And this is probably one of the best things that we've ever done. So we put the Ring doorbell on the front door, so when they come up, they hit the doorbell. Now it's motion censored, so it triggers to certain people in the office that are working remotely. It lets them know somebody's in the area, so they can immediately hit the button and start talking to that individual before they even touch the doorbell. And if they get to the doorbell beforehand, it'll ring at their particular location. So they'll get a little ring on their computer and see them on the screen. Then you can click a button and it'll record what they're saying. So you can hear them and they can hear you. And so one of the things we put on the sign that's on the door is just basically says, press the Ring doorbell, state your name and your cell phone number. Now, the reason we do that is because if for some reason we didn't catch them, we would have their name and phone number to call them back. And that has been incredible. The amount of response we've got back from customers, and the fact that, you know, maybe nobody picked up right at that moment, but they called them back in a few minutes, was just fantastic. So that's one of the things that we've done to help with the customer base. And the reason we get the cell phone number is to call back and have a better secure line to speak to them about their particular needs. And they can go back and get in their car, they can drive home, whatever they want to do, and we can continue to take care of what they need over the phone.
Good stuff. Really, that's a great tip on the Ring doorbell. And George, I'll put you on the spot here. You can make a Ring doorbell secure, correct?
Yes, you can. You can. And you can use other doorbells as well, but we have that. Now, one of the things I love about the Ring is because it records the conversation. So here again, you can go back. We actually had some people come up over the weekend and touch the doorbell and state their name and their phone number. So I was able to call them over the weekend and get back in touch with them, and they were just like, wow, I can't believe that. That's incredible. They couldn't believe somebody called back, and it came to my cell phone. So it was it's pretty amazing. But yes, you can make that secure.
There may be a lot of visitors to our webinar today that are surprised that you have visitors to your agency on the weekend. So, but that's a whole nother topic. We'll talk about that another day.
It's really that's interesting because I wasn't expecting that either, and that's one of the things that came out of this particular technology when we put it in. That's
awesome. All of you guys have mentioned at some point the use of video, and that is an emerging, it's been around, but the use of video communication has really blossomed here just in the last 2 months. Andrew, I know you've been a real hero on using video in your agency. Tell us a little bit about how it's been effective for you.
Certainly. To say that using video has impacted us as an understatement. It's been it's another game changer for us. We use both, as you see on the screen, Loom, as well as another software that's built into our website through our website provider. And that piece of it, we call it Quote Vids. And Quote Vids is basically we do all of our proposals via video. We do heavy personal lines, and so it's hard to get face-to-face with a lot of people, where a traditional agency is going to most likely just send a proposal over an email or have a conversation over the phone, which is completely fine. We prefer to do a video because chances are, more so in personal lines insurance, with technology, some of the bad things of technology is that sometimes you don't create as good of rapport and good relationships with people because everything is done via email and texting. Well, this allows the person to see who we are as individuals, and it also allows us to express what we're trying to get across to them. You can only get across so much in writing in an email, but whenever they actually see you and they visualize it, or they see your screen and you're showing them, this is how your 2% wind deductible works, and they can see it, and they're like, oh, okay. And so what we've also found is that by recording our proposals in typically under 10 minutes, it's freeing up more time and allowing for more productivity, because if I were to have that same conversation over a phone call, that can easily go an hour for trying to propose, because there's always all these additional questions. And I'm not saying you don't want to answer them, but you can answer them uninterrupted on these videos that you do. And so you can do screen recordings, you can show yourself, you can show both. If you don't want somebody to see you on the screen, it's just a really cool way of sending somebody a message, more so than just an email or a phone call.
Frank, I'll have to say that Andrew's videos are very compelling. I mean, he's done a very good job with those, and I've seen a few others out there, and it's certainly a way to connect with clients that does not come across via email, and a lot of times doesn't even come across over the telephone.
And one other thing that we actually have done, and I didn't create this, I stole it from some friends of mine that own another agency in the Northeast, but they because we're all working remote and we don't get to see each other face to face, as a leader of my organization, I wanted my team to know how we are doing during this time. And so I have done many videos to my team, keeping them up to date on where we stand as an agency and letting them know how important they are to the agency during this time. And it's, again, and doing something at all is great. So just writing an email to your team is awesome. But if you can do it in a video, that can be so much more impactful. And I use Loom for that. I'll use Loom all the time just to do a quick video. You can download the video, and I've uploaded some to YouTube, and we've used them for marketing purposes. And Loom's free. It's a free service that you can use right away.
Yeah, and Andrew, I'll share this in our experience with Loom. The clients that we send that to usually respond back with, wow, that's amazing. They just can't believe it. And it really sets you apart from your competition. And I think that's a great way to go.
This week, I sent a video renewal proposal to a client. He's 81 years old, and he thought it was the coolest thing. And so some people out there that are like, oh, well, my clients aren't going to like this, or they're not going to go for that, or this client's too big of an account to do that with. I've done it with my largest accounts and my smallest accounts, the young people and the old people. They all love it.
They do. You're absolutely right.
George, one other quick thing, kind of piggybacking on what Andrew said and was talking about. Communication is within your group. Working remotely is absolutely key. And we actually did a quick survey of all our employees. We were asking about just that. The survey went out this morning. We were asking how well the entire group thought we were communicating with the agency as a whole, with the individual the management staff, from the managers down to the staff folks, and everyone was very pleased. We were trying to make sure that they felt like they had the tools to continue to be successful and work without interruption and having any sort of hiccups with contact and continuity with our clients. And it was all thumbs up. And a large part of that is because we use Zoom meetings on a very regular basis. I was on one with the sales force this morning. I was on one yesterday afternoon with the management staff. We do try to continue to communicate and just let folks know, ask folks how they're doing. The management staff has the 4 or 5 of us. We have a list each week. We have different people that we're calling, not to ask how business is going, but ask how they're doing personally, right, just to make sure that they're maintaining their sanity. A lot of them staying at home with kids, pets, other distractions, and maybe sometimes with isolation with no other adult contact. So we're trying to make sure that we're still having that human connection with the staff.
Yeah, and that's very important, Jay. I agree with that wholeheartedly.
Jay, we've done a lot of the same thing, because a lot of times you can get out of sight, out of mind, and you just assume that things are going well, but not. It's not always the case. So good point.
Guys, appreciate all the input you've given us today. We're closing in on the end of this webinar, but I do think, Megan, do we have a couple of questions maybe from people that have been listening?
We do. We had several roll in, and a lot of those y'all have answered already, but one of the questions is regarding the cost associated with these applications. So, Andrew, would you like to start with that one?
Sure. In many cases, the cost is free. As I mentioned with Loom, that's a free service that you can use, and you can start using it right away. But George had a great experience with his voice over IP phone system, where he's saving $700, $600 a month in savings. So in some areas you might save a lot of money, and some services might cost something, but what value are you getting for it? But the net savings is probably, at the end of the day, probably still going to save you money and help you be more productive, and showing how you're a little bit different to your clients out in the marketplace, where there's a lot of competition. So what can we do to be different? Maybe use video.
Right, and I think to that point, Andrew, a lot of people may be thinking these particular applications are expensive or pricey, when in reality, a lot of them are actually free. And to the voice over IP, I mean, it's amazing the savings after we put those phones in. My accountant couldn't even believe it. Matter of fact, the next year when I went by to see him, he had voice over IP.
Yep. So yeah, Slack is free, Loom is free. The voice over IP phone systems, you can Google it, and there are many options, a lot that specialize with insurance agencies. You can get it as low as $15, $20 per person per month, and compare that to what you might be spending currently. You'll see it can be a major savings. In regards to e-signature systems, there are some free versions or limited services as part of a free subscription, but even those can be as little as $10 a person a month. And when you compare it to printing, all the printing cost and paper cost and mailing cost of trying to get physical applications signed, it is a far cheaper option, even when something might cost.
Not to mention the time savings.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, great. The next question I had come in, I know we discussed a lot of security with working remotely. What are your suggestions for keeping your office secure with video conferencing and calls?
I would say, just kind of out of the top, make sure your meetings are private and set passwords up for the meetings. Make sure you're muting everybody on a particular call. And if you're talking within the office, that's one thing. But if you're bringing on people outside, definitely make sure you mute and maybe turn off the video. Would be some of my suggestions.
Yeah, certainly don't allow anyone else to have any capabilities to share their screen.
Right.
That's another big one. And it's just, you want to say kind of common sense things, but I know this is some new technology to a lot of people. But there are a lot of basic protocols that I think that are very easy to put in place. So whenever you're signing up for a Zoom meeting, it will ask you, do you want to have this password protected? Do you want to allow for video or just audio? And so you don't have to go search somewhere and find some setting, far into the settings categories. Like it's right there on the screen. But I certainly recommend using a minimum password, as George said.
Okay, great. That is the end of our questions for today. And I know we're coming on to the max of our time. So any other questions, we want to encourage anyone to email to information@iiabsc.com.
Thanks, Megan. Hey, listen, guys, thank you all for your time today and all your insight on this. I know you're available individually. If people reach out to you or if they reach out to us with a question, we'll get it to you as well. Becky and Megan, I appreciate your help behind the scenes. George, I'll throw it to you for any closing comments.
Well, I just want people to know that working remotely can be done. It can be effective, and the costs are not as high as a lot of people think. So definitely reach out to anybody here on the call today. We'd be more than happy to answer any other specific questions that you have, and it's a pleasure to be here.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks for tuning in.